I guess the next big question is, if you think about China's self-image today, and its idea that it was the center of the Silk Roads, that attitude isn't exactly new in China. It has a tendency to see itself as the center of the world, which obviously brings up the question of why was it that China was so receptive to Indian ideas, and who were the folks who were bringing Indian ideas there?
So it's quite interesting. In Southeast Asia, you get the impression that Buddhism and Hinduism are traveling because of the wealth generated by trade backwards and forwards. So it's part of prosperity. What happens in China is that Buddhism arrives there fairly early on, the 1st, 2nd century, but it doesn't become anything more than a religion of foreigners until you get this great crisis in China in the 3rd century. And we in the West are used to this idea of the fall of Rome in the 5th century, Attila the Hun, the end of the Roman Empire. And that is the moment when, in that crisis, Christianity takes over. In the same way, with the burning, also by the Huns, incidentally, same people, of Chang'an, the main capital of China, and this unprecedented Holocaust and apocalypse of classical Chinese culture, which takes place in the 3rd century. That moment of questioning and crisis, just like it had given the opening and posed the questions which Christianity seemed to provide an answer for, so Buddhism does the same in the cataclysmic 3rd century.
So it is a religion that promises you saviors in a time of crisis.
Exactly that. And you see Buddhism spreading into China in the 4th, 5th century and taking over very slowly, often propelled by strange monastic settlements of Indian monks, clearly on mushrooms or something here, drawing blue elephants. And, I don't know what they're on, but wild, crazy stuff in Kizil. And Buddhist monks, Chinese monks coming to Nalanda, which is obviously a major focus in the book. The extraordinary library of Nalanda, which attracts Xuanzang, but many, many others, and leads to even the kings of you've written about this in your columns, the kings of Sumatra, founding establishments in Nalanda, like sort of expat colleges, and we have that copper plate surviving. But this is the woman who is the key woman that I don't think anyone knows about here, but is an important figure in this story. That's what we think she actually probably looked like but at the top. This is her current incarnation in a something like a 250-part Chinese soap opera. And it's a simple story. She is around as a 14 or 15-year-old, just recruited into the imperial bedchamber as, it's unclear her role, shall we say, at this point, but she becomes part of the Tang court, the early Tang dynasty court, exactly at the moment when Xuanzang has come back from Nalanda. And they know each other and meet each other and become allies, a 14-year-old Buddhist girl and the Tang emperor. And the story, to cut a long story short, but it's one of the main moments in the book, because it's one of the moments that we have most detail of, with personalities. The concubine ends up having the empress and the chief concubine murdered, takes over, becomes the empress, then the emperor himself has a mysterious stroke, and she takes over as the only emperor who's a woman in Chinese history. And in order to defeat the Confucian establishment, she converts the court to Buddhism and demotes the Taoists and the Confucians. And she brings in a bunch of very, it could never happen today. Imagine everyone saying yes to a great ruler and doing everything that he wanted. But there is a whole load of, shall we say, yes men who turn up from India and do everything that she wants, and they replace at the court the old Confucian establishment, and Buddhism becomes an Indian religion, becomes the court religion in China. Briefly, it doesn't last long, but it allows it space to become a major Chinese religion for the rest of history.
It's amazing to think that so much hinged on the actions of one particular individual and her political motivations.
There is 250 parts to this soap opera if you want to watch it. And it's a gory and thrilling tale.